Hey guys, Alg here for the Chapter 9 Part 2 practice test. And I will try to go through this a little quicker than some of the other videos. Okay, so let's just get it rolling. I guess first of all, when I look at this practice test, I did it similar to the Part 1 where the first few questions, I think the last one had 8. This one I probably have 6 or 8. It might be a little different than this test here of factoring questions. These first two are greatest common factor. These next two are trinomials with the first coefficient being 1, and 2 where it's standard factoring with a not equal 1. And this one is, number 6 is actually a combination of both. You could factor a 2 out of there. Or could you factor a 4? No, 4 doesn't go into 30. So you could factor a 2 out of there first. So I have a key here. Here is the key for the practice test. Looks like I changed it around from 17x to 14x. Yeah. Here it is, everything factored. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Otherwise, I put some links on Google Classroom also for some con videos, or just do a Google search for factoring quadratics. These equations that have an x squared as the highest coefficient is x squared, those are called quadratic equations or quadratic expressions, and there's just a million videos out there that you can watch on how to do that. For instance, number 5 here, I usually use that box method, but instead of spending any more time on that, some of the earlier videos you can look at that will have that. So let's move on, and let alone I'm going to do it with some of these other questions. First I'll show you the answers. And then I will show you how to do the rest of these problems. But just so if you just want to get the answers, yeah, here they are. I think I actually posted this key up there as well. You can see I did it in Smartboard because of the different colored ink. Little bit hard to see, but I circled the answer. So here's 16x plus 21 over 56x squared. This problem number 11, here's the answer down here. X plus 4, x plus 5, x plus 6 is the common denominator. And then the last 4 questions are solving. Because there's an equal sign, you're going to get an answer. If there's one term on each side, you can cross multiply. If the denominators are the same, you can get rid of the denominators. So that's the easy way to do it. If you cross multiply, you'll get an x squared and have to solve for it, factor it again. And then the last 2 questions, which are a little bit harder, and getting a common denominator when there's 2 terms on one side, that's what you have to do. You have to get a common denominator on everything, and then once you have a common denominator, you can basically multiply both sides of the equation by the denominator and basically cross off the denominator. So let's get to it. Question number 7. When you're adding and you have a common denominator, you can just add. So this is 6 plus 9 over 11x, which equals 15 over 11x. And if you happen to notice that any of my answers are different than my other answer key, please let me know. This one, since we have a common denominator again, you can just subtract. We have 12x squared minus 6x. If you have to do any manipulation with the second term to get a common denominator, then I would say change this plus to a minus. But since it's just the one term, you can you can just subtract. Now this looks like it's done, and we have added it and made it one term, but this can actually get reduced down. This has a similar to problem number 1 and 2, probably more similar to 2, where we can pull a 6 and an x out of this term. We can do the same thing over here. Actually, we can pull a 6 and an x out of that top term. So this becomes 6x, and what's left over is 2x. The 6x times 2x is 12x to the second, minus, pull a 6x out of 6x, and we'll get 1. 6x times a 1 is 6x, so we'll get 2x minus 1, all over 2x minus 1. And then we can cross that off. So our final answer is 6x. That's simplified, added and simplified. And then you can see why this is part of the same chapter as the last test. That's exactly what we did in the last test. Number 9, what's the least common denominator? Well, the thing you want to do for that is factor this term. This is 8 times x squared. This is 8 times x. This, with a minus in here, we can factor it, and both terms have an 8 in it and both terms have an x in it. So this, and all it says is what's the least common denominator. So we don't have to add it or do anything. So here's our two terms. So we have this one will factor down to 8x, and then we have an x minus 3. So if we were to add these, we have an 8x squared, an 8x, and an x minus 3 as our basically 3 things that are getting multiplied together. So 8x squared will need an x minus 3 in it. So we're going to need 8x to the second. And 8x, we would need to multiply this term by x over x. But 8x to the second is covered by the 8x. 8x is covered by the 8x second. So this would be our common denominator. So if we were to add these two together, I would multiply this term by x minus 3 over x minus 3, and I'd multiply this term by x over x. And that would give me 8x to the second times x minus 3. That's always one that messes people up, so I wanted to spend a little more time on it. Really kind of notice this one, because it's an easy one to make a mistake on. So what's the LCD here? If we were adding 3/8 plus 2/7, it would be 56 is the least common multiple of those two terms. And then we have x to the second is our highest degree of x. So to multiply these two, you can see why I changed pens. I'm gonna have to multiply this one by 7 over 7. And then this one I'm going to have to multiply by 8x over 8x. And that'll give me 56x to the second on both terms. So we have 21 over 56x to the second plus 16x over 56x to the second. And now we can add them. So we have 21 plus 16x. Might be a little better to say 16x plus 21, but that's fine, just like this, 56x. And there is our solution. This one, if you want just some extra points, if you don't do anything else, make sure you factor. And I'm going to change that plus to a minus. Instead of minusing, I'm trying to change that to a plus, a negative. Factor this, two numbers that multiply and give me 30. That would be x plus 6, x plus 5. Hopefully you're getting kind of used to that. And the two numbers have to add up to 11, multiply and give you 30. Two numbers that multiply and give you 24, so you get 24 and 1, 12 and 2, they don't add up to 10. 8 and 3, no, not quite. 6 and 4. So x plus 6, x plus 4 is going to add up to 10. And if you FOIL that, you'll see that that works out. X squared plus 4x plus 6x gives me 10x plus 24. Now, what am I going to have to do to, what's the least common denominator? Well, it's going to be x plus 6 times x plus 5. This has an x plus 6, but it has an x plus 4 also. So these are all separate terms. So this, our least common denominator is going to be x plus 4 times x plus 5 times x plus 6. So this term over here is going to need an x plus 5 over x plus 5. And this one needs an x plus 4. It stayed up all night crying because there was no x plus 4. It really needs an x plus 4 badly. I mean, we could make a movie out of how badly it wanted an x plus 4. Now we have x plus 4, x plus 5, x plus 6 in both of these terms. Now we can add them. First, we'll distribute this 3x to the x plus 4, and that would give us 3x to the second plus 12x. I know I'm going fairly fast, so pause if you need to. And now we have one common denominator, so we can add these two things together. Minus 2x times x, so I'm going to get a minus 2x to the second, and minus 2x times 5 is minus 10x. And if I could copy and paste, well, I would just copy and paste. But I'm just going to say this is all over my least common denominator, which is x plus 4 times x plus 5 times x plus 6. And now I can combine like terms. So 3x squared minus 2x squared is 1x squared, or x squared. And then we have 12x minus 10x, so it's minus 2x. And that, you could write that as x times x minus 2, but actually we'll just leave it like that. And then our final answer is x plus 4. If there was an x minus 2 on the bottom, I would probably want to factor it so I could cross off the x minus 2's, but there's not. X plus 4, x plus 5, x plus 6. And that's, that's pretty White Castle hamburger right there. Tough to stomach. All right, we are having fun. Let's go purple. All right, now the last four are solving. One term on each side, we can cross multiply. So we have 8 times x minus 7 equals negative 7 times x plus 6. And distribute, 8 times x minus 7 is 8x minus 56 equals minus 7x minus 42. And add 7x to both sides, and we're going to get 15x. Add 56 to both sides equals 56 minus 42 is 14. Geez. X equals, then divide both sides by 15. So I'm going to get 14 15ths. And sorry, but I got to look at my answer key and see if that's what I got the last time. 12, 14 15ths. Good, got the same thing, so probably is right. Now I'm going to do this one the easy way. They have a common denominator, I can just get rid of it. I multiply both sides by x plus 5. I would multiply it across and factor and set it both sides, set it equal to 0 and solve for x. You're going to get two parentheses, like an x plus 4 times an x plus 5 equals 0 when you're all said and done. one of the answers won't work. One of the answers will be -5. And then, but this is much easier. So we have 10x equals 5, and just to save a little bit of time, 10x equals 5, x equals 5 over 10, or 1/2. Divide both sides by 10. Divide by 10, you get 5/10, 5/10, 1/2. And if you plug 1/2 in for x, you could put it on the bottom. You get 5.5 on the bottom, 5.5 on the bottom. So 5.5 is on the bottom, but you have something equals on the bottom on both sides. So the top's have to equal. So x for 10, 1/2 times 10 is 5, equals 5. All right, now let's, and once again, to save some time, I'm going to skip this bonus question. It's really similar to this problem number 14. Well, I'll just show you. The least common denominator is going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. And you're going to have to multiply 3 times x plus 3, x minus 3. And, over x plus 3, x minus 3. And then that's going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. And this one you're going to have to multiply by x minus 3, x minus 3. And it's going to take a while because we're going to have an x squared and have to solve. But that's how you'd set it up. You'd have x plus 3, x minus 3, 3 times that, all over x plus 3, x minus 3. And you'll have 2 over x plus 3, x minus 3, and then you're going to have 5x times x minus 3 over x plus 3, x minus 3. Then you can get rid of the denominators and solve. Now this one is x plus 7, x minus 7. Difference of squares. The other way to look at that is two numbers that multiply and give you -49 and add up to 0, because it's 0x in the middle. Of course, it's easier just to kind of learn this difference of squares. It's going to get a little hard to read, so maybe hopefully you can hear this okay. This term that needs an x plus 7, so I'm going to multiply by x plus 7 over x plus 7. I'm going to put it down here. And then I'm going to have x plus 7, x minus 7 for that term. And I'm going to have to multiply this one by x minus 7 over x minus 7. And I'll have everything's going to have x plus 7, x minus 7. And now to distinguish this once again from those earlier problems like up here, you can't just get rid of the denominators here, because we're just adding the two things together. It's like 1/2 plus 1/2. You can't get rid of the 2's on the bottom. But when you're solving and you have one side of an equation with an equal sign, you have one side of the equation and the other side of the equation both have the same denominator, then you can get rid of the denominator. So that's much more like this. I've used this example a few times. X over 5 equals 7 over 5. Well, x has to equal 7, because 7 over 5 equals 7 over 5. So I can just get rid of the denominator. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to get rid of the denominator because now I've got everything equal. So I end up with 2x plus 4x, or 4 times x plus 7 equals 3 times x minus 7. And once again, that would all be over, everything would be over x plus 7, x minus 7. Now I got 2x plus 4x plus 28 equals 3x minus 21. And we have 6x on one side and 3x on the other side, so subtract 3x from both sides. And I know I'm kind of skipping a step here, but if you add this up, you're going to get 6x, and one of the times we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Now I'm going to subtract 28 from both sides. Negative 28 minus and a negative 21 is going to be a negative 49. and divide both sides by 3, and x equals negative 49 over 3. Skipping a step like that is okay. If you didn't do any of this work here and just came up with the answer of negative 49 thirds because you just worked it out in your head, I maybe have you show me how you do that. And I have had people do that before, because I know there are apps that will actually do this for you. We should just use those on the test. That way you wouldn't have to know anything. Go through life never having to know anything. That would probably be more helpful. Change this minus to a plus. Factor this. Now, you know, think of two numbers that multiply and give you negative 54 and add up to positive 3. Well, I don't even do that on this one. I'm looking at these two numbers because I have a feeling if you made it any more complicated than this, it probably is not going to be on our test. So this is x plus 9, x minus 6, if we factor it. X plus 9, x minus 6. So just really similar to problem number 14. This term's going to need an x minus 6 over x minus 6. And this one's going to need an x plus 9 over x plus 9. And once again, kind of beating a dead horse. What a nice phrase that is. I've been beating a dead horse over here. Who does that? How often do you see a dead horse even to beat? So that probably goes back to a few years. Anyway, now we have x minus 6 times x plus 9, x minus 6, x plus 9, x plus 9, x minus 6. So both sides have the same denominator. We can get rid of the denominator, and we end up with 1 times x minus 6 plus negative 3x minus 27. And this side already has the denominator, so I didn't multiply it by anything, equals 8. Combine them. First we got x minus 6 minus 3x minus 27. You could probably skip this test when I multiplied by 1, equals 8. And we have a 1x and a minus 3x, so we have minus 2x. I will save a step here. I have a minus 6 and a minus 27. That's minus 33. So I have to add 33 to both sides. That equals 41. And divide by negative 2. X equals negative 41 over 2. Now negative 41 over 2 is the same thing as 41 over negative 2, or you could put the negative out in front. And that is the end of that. Go ahead and sing and talk, and you are going to be on YouTube world famous. Rosie, come on.
No. Sorry.
Woohoo! Party in algebra, even though we're doing stats. End of the video. And Oryx signing off. Share with your friends. Facebook, same time. YouTube, me, Peep, all of that stuff.